I'm sorry. Chavzayin. I'm Chavzayin Medbet. Chavzayin Medbet. And Chavzayin Medbet, and it's, I think we're 4 lines to the bottom.
Yeah, very.
I'm Rabbi Levi.
It's actually B'chu L'Holech.
Okay, so a little earlier. Okay, so the pasuk was brought from Yirmiyahu Chavbet about not to mourn a deceased too much. It was a story about a woman who mourned every child in the end was she buried herself. Right. So the first half of the pasuk, al tifkul ameis v'al tanodu lo, al tifkul ameis yoter midai v'al tanodu lo yoter mikishir. Don't cry more and don't mourn more than you should. And therefore, 3 days for bechi, 7 days for hesped, 30 days for gihut and tisboret. That's washing. And gihut is actually cleaning, laundering, and tisboret is haircuts. Right. In other words, there's a process for mourning and a process that you have to go on, get your life together. Besides that, beyond that, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, look, I'm the one who creates life and death, so I'm the one who made it, so you have to go on. Then the Gemara says, the end of the pasuk is Bacho Sivka Laholech. Cry for the person who goes. Rabbi Yehuda Laholech v'lo banim. This is first a person who has no children. Rabbi Yehuda ben Levi lo azal evla elaman lo azal v'lo banim. That Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi only went to a shiva house where there was a person who did not have children, as it says, "D'chsiv bacho sivka laholech ki lo yashuv od v'ra'atz eretz molato." Okay, so that's one pshat of the pasuk, and then Rav Huna gives another pshat. Rav Huna Mar, when the pasuk says bacho laholech, cry for the person who's going. Amar zeh sha'avar aver v'yishana bo. They cry for the person who goes. Why are you crying? Because the person keeps going in a certain way. Which is the way? The way is the way that's improper. So a person who falls into a rut of doing an averos, that's the person who you're going to keep crying with because you're going to keep doing the averos. Why? So that's what the pasuk is meaning. The Navi is saying it doesn't have to do really with shiva, it doesn't have to do with crying, it has to do with the fact that we are mourning the erroneous ways of an individual who has fallen into a habit of doing a certain aveira. And who says it's Rav Huna? And Rav Huna l'tamei. Rav Huna follows his own opinion. The Amar Rav Huna, kevan she'avar bo adam aveira v'shana bo hutrelo. When a person does an aveira and repeats it, shana is to repeat it again. It is the second time. It's like a heter for him. It's like permissible. So the Gemara says hutrelo. What do you mean? It's permissible for him. The first time it's an aveira, second time it's heter. It becomes like permissible to him. Okay.
So this has nothing to do.
So it has nothing to do with Aveilus.
Or with Aveilus at all, right?
Correct.
Just a
it's
general
simply
statement.
just the end of the pasuk is referring to it in a different application, that we're crying for a person who keeps doing more and more Aveilus.
Yeah.
The fact that a person does Aveilus again and again
makes it easier to do the next one.
Correct. That's right. It's the force of habit. There are certain taboos that people don't break, and when they break it the first time, the taboo is gone. Right. So instinct has been cut out, and person now realizes they can go on. And Rabbi Yisrael Salanta had a very famous vort in which he quoted this Gemara, says, the first time you do it is Naveira, the second time Huchulu, by the time you do it the third time you feel you're doing a mitzvah. Okay? But this is human nature. The more we do things, the more we become inured to it. Self-justification, we feel it's right, and we actually we talk ourselves into the fact this is the proper way to go. Okay, you all can make the application to ourselves. We do something, we don't do something, whatever it is, we don't even think how wrong it is because we've gotten so used to doing it. Okay? And finally, the end of this piece of Gemara, Rabbi Levi, Avel shlosh yamim harishonim yiras atva kilo cherev munachas lo bein shtei yar kosav or yirei kosav. First 3 days, an Avel should think that the sword is sitting between his loins. Okay, that's actually very raw, very graphic. In other words, that's the kind of anxiety and internal unsettledness that a person has in the first 3 days after burial. This is like the sword is going to drop any minute. You're tittering. from 3 to 7, as if the sword is there, but it's in a corner, it's not on top of you. It can come and it can do damage, but you still have a moment maybe to jump back. Mi kan ve'ela kilo overes keneged b'shog. After the 7 days of Shiva, there is the sword is there, but the sword is going. It's not necessarily close to you. It's not even in your corner. It's in the marketplace. A sword in the marketplace can create damage. You may go out into the marketplace, you may get cut. It may come into your corner, but right now it's not close to you. And in Yerushalmi, it gives a different type of analogy that until 30 days the sword is wide open. After 30 days it's shaky, it's put down, and after 12 months it's been put back into its sheath. Okay, so in other words, all of these kinds of sense of settledness and resettling, and an Abba trying to find a way to reorder his life after a suffering a loss. Okay. So this is the end of this long piece of Gemara about what you can bring to a Shiva house and what you do in a Shiva house. And the end of the Mishnah talked about that we don't put the beer down on Chol Moed for a hesped, and we don't put the beer of women down at all mipnei hakavod. Okay, so the Gemara tries to understand what that means. Okay, so v'lo shel nashim lo mipnei hakavod. You don't put down the body for women in the marketplace in the center of the city where they stop for it all. Amar naidoi lo shanu ela chaya. Okay, chaya is refers to a woman who is giving birth. Okay, a woman who is giving life is called a chaya. Sometimes the chaya refers to actually a midwife. In this case, it refers to the woman who actually is giving birth. And obviously, if she gave birth, if she died in childbirth, there was all kinds of hemorrhaging that probably occurred. One of the common causes of childbirth in antiquity was internal hemorrhaging, where the baby didn't present itself correctly, and as a result, when the baby came down the birth canal, it ripped and caused all kinds of bleeding, and women, I won't say frequently, but often died in childbirth from this internal hemorrhaging.
Because they couldn't do a cesarean. They didn't know.
Or cesarean section was just as fatal.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and they did not have modern medicine that was able to even anesthetics.
They didn't know about infections either.
And they didn't know about infections either, correct. So either the woman died from hemorrhaging, or she may have died from some sepsis or from infection right away. So we often forget how dangerous actually childbirth was.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a natural way, but there was many dangers fraught in not just antiquity, just until maybe the 1900s, even in the 1900s, early 20th century. So therefore, the Gemara Nardoi says, when we're talking about not putting down a woman in the marketplace, a body, that's referring to a woman who would be, blood would still be flowing. The concept is that we bury very quickly.
So it doesn't congeal? It does
congeal, but
still.
I guess the concern was you move the body and maybe things would clump out. Okay. Look, without a coffin, it's very exposed.
Yeah, okay.
So yes, it does congeal. There is rigor mortis, but at the same time,
could come. Okay.
There's still body fluid.
So they're saying don't put the body down. They're going to move the body.
They would take the body and they would carry it to the cemetery and bury it.
But that's a good question. Did they carry without stopping? In other words,
that's the idea.
I guess they were strong enough to do it, or whatever.
They must have had it on a board or something.
It was
for sure they had it on some sort of a board,
right.
But still.
Right. What's the concern? The concern is that she's dripping blood? Possibly.
I know. You're trying to wonder what they did do. You can see what they didn't do, but what they did do, I think, is the question.
So in other words, people are being buried in all kinds of states.
Yeah.
Once again, we live in a very...
so wait a minute, what about the hesped already did?
So they gave a hesped. They can bear to
Where was the body?
No, it's not that they didn't give a hesped. It says that they didn't they would stop in the center of the city. They would stop in the Rehov Shalir and place the body down.
Okay.
So they didn't make that. They didn't do that.
So they would give a hesped in the center of the city? Is that the idea?
No, they give a hesped. I give a hesped.
Normally, let's say not for a woman, for a guy, let's say.
I guess they give more hesped in the center of the city. In the
So they put the body down, then give a hesped over
But they didn't put the body down. They simply proceeded to the cemetery.
So no hesped.
It looked like it was a shortened. It looked like it was a shortened hesped. They gave it at the cemetery.
Didn't they do it at the cemetery?
Well, at the cemetery.
After the burial?
Before the burial. But once again, it's not the same as putting it in a wide open spot. That would be less respectful. So, but the key here is that this, according to Nardoi, the application is very limited. It's only referring to a isha chaya, a woman who gave birth while she was bleeding, right?
Died while she was giving birth.
Died while she was giving birth. Correct. Now, our Mishnah did not say that. Our Mishnah said v'lo shel nashim le'olam, that you never did nashim. So the Mishnah doesn't. The simple pshat of the Mishnah is not that. The Mishnah said that you don't put down the casket, not casket. You don't put down the stretcher, the beer, and the mechover shel ir on Chol Moed, in order not to extend the hespeidim, right? And you don't put down for women forever, mipnei kavod, because of kavod. So Nardoi is interpreting kavod in a specific case where it would create a lack of respect for the deceased because she was still having blood would still be flowing, the body fluids would still be dripping. So Rav Elazar Omer afilu shar hanashim. Rav Elazar says no, not true. That there was an application made for all women as well. That no women were placed in the Rechova Shalir even on a weekday. Mipnei kavod. Now what would the kavod be? So the lack of kavod is the shape. It looks like would be visible. When the concept of in a society where there was a sense of respect for the dignity of woman, and you're basically burying someone who's wrapped in a shroud in a cloth or a sheet, which is what happens in Israel today, stopping and deferring or slowing down the process was seen as disrespectful, to putting the feminine shape on display in a way which was very obvious. That's how Rabbi Elazar seems to apply it, and it would therefore be a genai. It would be disrespectful to all women. And he says, how do you know this? D'chsiv, as it says in Parshas Chukas. It was a week and a half ago. Vatamasha Miriam Vatiko Versham. At the beginning of Parshas Chukas, towards the beginning, Miriam dies, and at the end of Parshas Chukas, Aaron HaKohen dies. Now, with Aaron HaKohen, there's the whole big thing. Moshe takes Aaron up to Har HaHor. He takes off his garments. He passes on to his son. People cry for Aaron. It looks like it's a big deal.
Yeah,
when Miriam dies, it's a half a sentence. Vatamasha Miriam Vatiko Versham, and then below Hayamayim later, there was no water.
Yeah, but first of all, Aaron knew he was going to die, and Moshe knew he was going to die. So there's a whole preparation. It looks like she just died.
Correct.
True.
Yes, it's not. It's true. So you say the Torah doesn't tell us everything. Maybe there really was a big procession. The Torah just says she died, boop, and she was buried, without giving us all the pieces in between.
It doesn't necessarily say time. It talks about Sham is there. She died and she was buried there.
I'll tell you,
not necessarily they got buried her 5 minutes later.
Well, actually, it says Vatama Shemiriam. It's not even a full sentence. Vatama Shemiriam, Vatikover Sham, V'lo Hayamayim La'eda. I forget which place. What's the name of the location? Okay, Meim Riva. No, it's not Meim Riva. It's another place. But the point of it being that the Gemara comments on the brevity of the process. You're right, it's not clear. It could be the Torah doesn't tell us what this is, but it comments on the brevity as if to say that the funeral, the death and burial was fairly compressed. She died, she was buried. What does it mean? It means they didn't put the body on display. They didn't stop along the way. They immediately proceeded to funeral, to burial, and on they went.
But what are they going to do? I mean,
where they buried? Where they buried her? They buried her in that location.
There's no graveyard. It's 100 yards away.
So there is no graveyard. They didn't necessarily have graveyards. They buried her
in the desert.
Right. In the desert, fine.
There, so that's all.
Okay, fine. You're right. Does not have to be. It could be with this. It is not the pshat of the pasuk, but Chazal see a remes from this, the fact that women were not subjected to the same ostentatiousness of public burial displays or public funereal eulogies as men were. Okay?
There's one before this is Rachel, when she dies on the way.
Yes.
What did it say there? It's also like.
No, it says
they buried her there or something.
Put a monument up for her, though. Yes, it says, right?
Right. We'll look it up. It says when it says they were on the way and v'toma but the kash b'lidatah. It actually talks about how she died.
She talking would apply to her because she died in childbirth.
Right.
Yeah.
So the answer is you probably can find any one of a number of places where people died and are buried. The Gemara's drash, and it is no more than the drash. And if you feel it's not pshat, you're well within your rights to say that. The Gemara's is really because the chapter later is you have in opposition to Miriam's death, you have the death of Aaron, which is a brother, a sibling, which is the same parsha, which is the same general location, and yet it seems to be more of a big deal. So the Gemara makes a bigger focus on what this is. That's all.
That was specifically to pass over the thing to the next generation.
So it's not pshat. I agree. I agree. It's not pshat.
What struck me about Miriam, of course, before I learned this was more the fact that nobody's cried for her. It sounds like. I mean, I was reading the Lubavitcher Rebbe's view on bringing women more, saying that women are just so underplayed. I mean, she's a Neviah, right?
Source of the water.
A sister of the two. They cried about the water for sure, but that's not what they cried about Miriam, right? Whatever the shot of this is, I mean,
she saved Moshe.
Of course she saved Moshe. I'm saying there wouldn't be Moshe if it wasn't for her, right? So you would have thought maybe
Moshe would have been born except for her.
Remember that?
Yes.
I remember that one too. Yeah. What can I say? The Torah obviously had a reason to do this. I don't know. That's all you can say. But it certainly always struck me, right? I mean, a couple of weeks ago, Chogas, right? Just like, bam.
Midbar Tzin. Vayeshiv Kadesh Vaytama Shamirim Atikover Sham.
Yeah. Is it the same pasuk about the Mayim or the very next one?
The very same pasuk.
The same pasuk.
It's like a blink. It's not just that. Vayevo b'nei Yisrael kol eda midbar tzin b'chodesh harishon.
Right.
Vayeshiv Kadesh. They're at Kadesh already. This is the end. This is the 40th year.
Right.
Vatama Sham Miriam dies Vatikover Sham. And then the next pasuk v'lo hayamayim leida.
The next pasuk. That's right.
The next pasuk. But the pasuk she dies is really only a very small part of the very pasuk when she dies.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, as opposed to I said the death of Miriam. Like it, don't like it. It's the Gemara. It's what Rav Eliezer uses as his remez
for women. No women.
For women not being women not being buried. I mean, you could argue and say that we saw earlier that there were rules that they made that applied to only some people, that they applied across the board. So, for example, they said you had to bring in simple baskets, and everybody is buried in the same way because you didn't want to make gradations between this level and that level. They tabled all the utensils, so people shouldn't say the person was a nida, a person was a zav, and so forth. So you could say that because some women were shofar dam, where some women died in childbirth, and it was a not proper presentation to put this woman's body out, right? And therefore all women were treated the same way, that no woman's body was put in Rechova Shalir. That would be the other way to look at it. And the pasuk is really only there for a smach to what is we call it like a low plug, to equate people. People shouldn't say this woman died, she was bleeding, this woman died, she wasn't bleeding, right? Okay, so and now the Gemara digresses a little bit to talk about the death of Miriam. Okay, in case you
the same Rabbi Elazar, right?
The same Rabbi Elazar, but this is really not about. This is a digression from some drash. And you may have heard some of this drash in different ways. Rashi quotes some of it in Parshas Chukas. The Amar Rabbi Elazar, Af Miriam bin Neshika Mesa. Okay, that even Miriam died with the kiss. Means that the kiss is the kiss that Hashem kissed Moshe, and
he had to suffer. He just passed away.
Yeah, because it just means he died.
Quickly.
In other words, quickly.
Al Pi Hashem, right? It says so. That means
Al Pi Hashem, because it says Vatama Shem Miriam, and with Moshe it says Asya Sham Shami Moshe, that Vatama Sham, and Moshe dies Al Pi Hashem. So Al Pi Hashem we interpret literally through the mouth of God. He kissed him. It means he died instantaneously without any pain. This is, people, we don't get to choose how we're born, and we don't get to choose how we die. There are easier ways that people die, and there are more difficult ways that people die. You all know this. So, and you can make the application in your own.
Once we went to Hesped, and the guy says you have to have muzzle even when you die.
That's it.
And you don't realize, I was a kid, I heard it, I didn't realize it. But it's true, because a lot of things.
Gemara says, choose, you should pray to choose a good death.
Yeah. Rabbi, do we know how Paul Yitzchak Yaakov died?
No.
They just died.
I assume so.
Sounds like
they just died. Seva Tova. Old age.
Yeah.
Okay, expired.
Bakom.
Vayigva. Vayigva means they expire peacefully. Okay, but not everybody expires peacefully. Okay. So therefore,
so he's saying Moshe
so
also
because when Miriam dies, it says Vatamas Sham Miriam, she dies there. There is Kadesh. When Moshe dies in Parsha, in the end of Vazosa Bracha, this is not, of course, Kadesh. It is on the top of Har Nevo. It says Vayomas Sham Moshe Eved Hashem Sham. He dies there. She dies there. They're there. They died the same way. Okay. With Moshe, it says Al Pi Hashem. With Moshe is the Medrash, the famous Medrash, that Moshe, that Hashem basically kisses Moshe and withdraws his life source. So the Gemara says, or Rabbi Lazar says, that Miriam died the same way. You know, sibling, she took care of Moshe. She may not have been on the same level of Moshe as a prophet, but nonetheless she died the same way. Now here's the next line. You got to be very careful how you say this to modern audience. Why, when Miriam dies, it simply says Vatamas Sham Miriam Vatika Ver Sham. When Moshe says Vayomas Sham Moshe Eved Hashem Vayomas Sham Moshe Al Pi Hashem. So why does Al Pi Hashem apply used with Moshe? Why is not mentioned Moshe? Because it was felt to be somewhat less equated to use this type of term referring to Miriam, who is a woman. Please don't ask me how to go there. I don't know how to go there. Okay, but that's the Gemara tries to say, that despite the fact that one was a man, one was a woman, one was a more greater prophet, one was a lesser prophet, they died the very same way. Okay. The Amar Rabbi Ami, or Amar Rabbi Ami. Once again, we're off topic here. Why does the death of Miriam come in connection with Paraduma? Rabbis always quote this medrash in one form or another. Parshas Chukas, which once again it was a week and a half ago, so you might still remember, opens up with Paraduma. At the end of Paraduma, you have the first aliyah, or your test, is about Paraduma. Chapter 20 is the pasuk where it starts with Miriam. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael kol edah midbartzin b'chodesh harishon v'yeshev am b'kodesh. Okay, now you say, well, that just happened then. It's not really true. The story with Miriam, or the death of Miriam, is happening in the 40th year, or the 39th year. The story about Paraduma is happening much earlier. There's a gap. There's a gap in Parshas Chukas. Let me say it the other way around. Parshas Chukas contains a very large gap of years that we know nothing about. It opens with Paraduma, the red heifer, which we believe was given early on, like the other laws of Karbanos and the other parts of the Torah, early on, the first, second year. The death of Miriam, or beginning with the death of Miriam, the Torah jumps to the end of the story, which is the 40th year. You don't know nothing about the 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year, 6th year, 10th year, 10th year, right? The whole middle of the book is missing. Okay? So, the question why that is, the question what really happens, means nothing happened, everything was eventful. Maybe everything was eventful. Did Hashem not speak to Moshe? Did he not add anything about the Torah? I don't know. There's a whole chunk of stuff in Devarim that is called Mishnah Torah, which comes up for the first time around. New halachas that we learn. When Moshe is repeating what he's learned over the 40 years. But the actual Torah itself is not really a history book. It has historical pieces to it. It has historical pieces, but it's really a book of laws. So the history of coming out of Egypt and going to Sinai and the first year until they built the tabernacle is important. The end is important as they reach the culmination of coming to Eretz Yisrael. But the middle 40 years are probably not that important. In the same way that there's a chunk of 40 years of Moshe's life that we know absolutely nothing about, and that is from the time he runs away from Pharaoh's palace until he comes back to bring the 10 plagues. Moshe dies when he's 120. They wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Ergo, Moshe is 80 years old when they go out. Absolutely. How old is Moshe when he hits the Egyptian? I don't know exactly, but he's not more than 40 years old. Where is Moshe for 40 years? What does he do? He ran away. Where did he run to? Ostensibly. All right?
He got married.
Well, ostensibly, there are midrashim that kind of paint other parts of Moshe's life. There's a very famous midrash that talks about Moshe going to the land of Cush. Nubia, Ethiopia.
India?
No, Ethiopia.
South.
He went south. He ran away. He ran into the wilderness. He went to no man's land, which was Ethiopia. He goes to a city. He ends up becoming the hero, saving the city. He marries the queen that's there. He becomes the king of the city. He rules the city for a certain amount of years, and then he gets this wanderlust and wanders away and ends up in Midian.
And God's not talking to him for his 40 years?
No. He's not matured yet. That's this unusual. It's a medrash. One of the unusual medrash about Moshe, and according to the medrash, and what is the medrash of course based on? When Miriam speaks about Moshe, and she talks about Isha Kushir Asher Lakach. So you know the famous Rashi says, oh, it's about Tzipora. Why is she called a Kushit? Because she was dark and swarthy. She was beautiful, dark and beautiful. Okay, but the simple pshat of Kushit, a Kushit is
from Ethiopia.
Okay, even though we have the
but she wasn't Kushit.
No. So if you accept this medrash, if you accept this unusual medrash, Miriam is talking about not Moshe's marriage to Tzipora, but his first marriage.
What's she complaining about his? That was it Lashon Hara?
That is Lashon Hara.
What did he do with his first marriage?
He married a Kushit, married a non-Jew.
What's wrong with that?
Oh, Midianite. Tzipora is also a non-Jew.
Well,
what's the difference?
Well, but he doesn't become Moshe Shalakim. He doesn't become the leader. He's got 40 years. 40 years he's sitting in the palace. 40 years he's being served. 40 years he's happy. He ran away from Pharaoh's palace and found this palace of Nubians. All I'm saying is that what I'm trying to get to is that there are chunks of history that we know nothing absolutely about.
In fact, the argument's been made that he wouldn't go north because the Egyptian influence was pretty far north into the Sinai, where the Midianites are and all that. Better to run away where the Egyptians aren't.
Where the Egyptians couldn't go because Nubia had its own kingdom, and past Nubia was dark. It was dark that it was
Africa.
Dark Africa. It was undeveloped. It was uncivilized completely. So that's the place to go if you're on the lam from Pharaoh's men. Anyways, once again, we don't know the 40 years that happens in the life of Moshe. It's a big chunk that's pulled out. We don't really know what happens in the life of Moshe in the palace until he hits the Egyptian. We don't know the 40 years that happens in the wilderness because in Parshas Chukas it opens the Paraduma, which is probably fairly early on because they're telling them laws of purity and impurity, and then it jumps to the death of Miriam. So when the Gemara asks the question, Lama Nismacha Misas Miriam, the Parshas Paraduma, why the two put together? It's not simply saying why did they get put together. It's fairly random. Of all the things to follow after Paraduma, why the death of Miriam? There could have been a chunk of other things that happened for 40 years which are not mentioned. The Gemara says, once again, it's a very famous Medrash. Rashi quotes in Parshas Chukas. The same way that the Paraduma, it creates forgiveness, it makes the person who's Tameh become Tahar, so too the death of Tzaddikim brings a forgiveness to the world. This is the Chazal's way of understanding why the righteous die. That they suffer for the sins of the Jewish people, of others. It sounds like suffering servant. It's not exactly, but it's simply saying that how is it possible there's culpability, there's communal culpability, and as a result, the death of the tzaddikim tends to offset the culpability of the community as well, even though they themselves are blameless.
Here's a question. Is it that Torah Messina. So Moshe told this to everybody. So this is the concept that I want you to pass on.
No.
Tzaddikim die for the.
Rabbi Ami says it. Moshe didn't say it. Rabbi Ami says. Rabbi Ami is reflecting.
But he got it from where? Okay, he figured it out.
I
don't know. My question is, did he get it from Moshe? Therefore, that's it. And then, okay, well, here's the pasuk that proves it, so-called proves it, because this parsha is close to that one. Or is it okay? I don't know the answer. I'm going to give you what I think is the answer, and let's here's the thing.
Maybe yes, maybe one way, maybe the other way. I don't know. I understand the question. It could be the question is right, could be the answer is. I don't know if the Medrash is based on anything from Sinai, or this is Rabbi Ami and Chazal trying to understand why the two are together, to say the Torah is teaching me not just halacha, the Torah is teaching me a comparison of values. The death of tzaddikim and the death of, and it's like paraduma that brings forgiveness. Okay, I don't have a better answer. Rav Elazar says another one similar. Once again, we're getting a little far afield. Lama nismecha misas Aaron the big day kahuna. Why is the death of Aaron compared or mentioned next to the Big Day Kahuna? Because Aaron is told to clothe his sons. Why the two go together? We know what the Big Day Kahuna are. Why do they have to be enumerated with the death of Aaron? So the Gemara says, Big Day Kahuna mechapim af misasam shel tzadikim mechaperes. The same way the Big Day Kahuna, if the Kohen is wearing the Big Day Kahuna, they bring forgiveness for the Kohen Gadol, even if he made some errors. So too the death of tzaddikim. Okay, these are really they're all homiletic values. Homiletic values. Okay. Now we get back to.
This is not halakha.
We get back to death. Okay. We're coming back into Moed Kattan. We're talking about types of ways that people die. Okay, people die precipitously. People die through illnesses, people die young, people die old. So the Gemara tries to look at certain ways that are ideal and certain ways that are less than ideal. This is connected to the piece we just did about Miriam dying with the kiss of God, which is instantaneous.
But in accidents, people die through various types of accidents. A person dies, could die through fire, could die through hail.
Yes, yeah.
Doesn't that have a correlation to a person's sins? If a person is too much on the
if we were right
side or on the wicked side.
If we were clever enough to be able to say that, we would, but for us to kind of speculate is just foolish.
Exactly.
But you know what, because we have no way of understanding how to correlate types of death and causes of death and why people die, right? And we see good people who die young and old, and bad people who live old. I don't know. But you're right. There looks like there should be some kind of midah connected midah. Okay.
Well, you know, they did that a few times in the previous the Talmud a few times. He died. He said such and such, and therefore, remember that one? And you got he said this, and therefore, boom, we got it that way.
And you got as excited then as you are now. So we shouldn't say it.
No, but on one side, you know, like he's so sure that he knows the answer.
You can't have it both ways.
So the end
can't have it both ways.
There are people who think they have a direct.
So
they know exactly what God's account.
So a lot of the homilies, the Gemara are difficult to accept literally. We have to look for meanings.
But why even bother? Like, you know, look, God knows everything. That's it.
Okay. But they were trying to find some sense in it all. That's all.
I think the next Gemara is going to be more realistic.
Remember the late Rabbi Shach? A bunch of kids were killed by a train in northern Israel about 20 years ago. He said, that's because they didn't keep Shabbos, or the whole country doesn't keep Shabbos, or whatever it was, right?
Oh, wait a minute. I got
one. I will tell you a better story. Some fellow went to Rav Kanievsky last week. And he says, why are you here? He said, I want a bracha. He said, what do you want a bracha? I want you to tell me what I should do that I should get a shidduch. Okay? What's the magic thing that you should do? Right, to find the goal. Give me a bracha. So Rav Kanievsky says, like, why are you asking me? Like, what do I know? He says, so why don't you go jump on a roof? So the guy went out of there, went onto the roof, jumped up and down 1,000 times, and sure enough, the next day found the shidduch and got married. Can you imagine that? You see that? So now, you tell me, is that truth or fiction? Okay.
No, but Rabbi, the classic one, the Chmielnicki massacres.
I have an answer.
No. Some rabbi, I forget the famous rabbi. You know why?
They spoke in shul.
Because they spoke in shul.
Right.
That's why they started these people.
Remember, I don't know.
A big percentage of the population. Because they talked in shul. They had no other problems. They only talked in shul. That was it.
Because they had a nevuah.
So the answer is, first of all, we actually, as a result of that, there is a Mishaber for those who don't talk in Shul, and this Shul actually says that Mishaber. It's from the Tosfos Yom Tov, Rav Yom Tov Heller, Lipman Heller, who wrote it in the wake of the Chmielnicki massacres. But they were grappling with a very theological issue, and there's no real answer. If you understood what happened in that era, which was the 1648, the Tach V'Tat, the communities were extremely righteous. Yeah. The communities were keeping the Torah like people hadn't kept it. Exactly. There was absolutely no theological reason you could say that this was a punishment from the Almighty. Exactly. And people grappled, how could this happen? How could this occur? And they were horrendous pogroms. They were terrible things. Yeah. Okay? There were cruelties that hadn't happened before or after. And so people said, what do we do? We have two choices. Either we reject God as unjust, We try to grapple with it, and the response to say that they were not quiet in shul was the best attempt they could come up with to say that if God is punishing, what could God be punishing for? But you know what? You and I can say it's of course very difficult to say that. But talking in shul, you know why? Because we don't even understand how bad talking in shul is. Because we walk into shul, and what do? We talk. Yeah. And Chmielnicki doesn't show up at the doors of the shul. So what happened? So you say, well, you see, that talking shul is not that bad. The point of it being, man grapples when one sees issues that you cannot understand. The brain tries to figure it out. Anytime there's a conundrum, the higher level of thinking tries to make sense of it. You see phenomena in nature that make no sense. You try to make it rational. That's what happened here as well. But no one is, of course, saying that we can second guess the Almighty to try to understand what things are.
Better not to try to find.
So let's come back to talk about.
But Eov is the perfect example. At the end, he says, "I'll never agree that I did something wrong," and the Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't say.
Okay, so let's come back to our Gemara. Meis Pitaom Zuhi Misa Chatufa. So Gemara talks about some very precipitous or immediate deaths. A person dies right away. It's called Mesa Chatufa. Chatufa is grabbed. In other words, it just happened.
What's Chatufa is what?
Grab.
To grab.
Grab. Okay, I got you.
In other words, the person was grabbed.
Right, got you.
Now, it's used here not as a positive term. It means a person didn't have a chance to get his house in order.
Right, just boom.
So one day it's a little better, but it's not much better. The chufa is dochaf, he pushed away. Okay, Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel Omer Zuhi mitat megefa. This is a plague. A person dies after one day. That's a seriousness, the infection of a plague. That's how we explain it. That's not God. That's simply just happens. Shinema, how do you know it's a plague? So of course everything's going to come from a Navi. And this is Yecheskel was forced to. Prophets often were asked to act out what their prophecies were. And so one of the things that Yecheskel was forced to do, or was required to do, was to marry a woman, and the woman died. And the woman was not faithful even.
He had to marry.
Yes.
What's the point?
So
to show up. To these ordinary people.
To show what it means to turn that you have a connection and the connection is broken. What
did women do to die? I mean,
okay. You're asking extremely difficult question.
He picks this woman to die.
She's going to die anyways. You can do her a favor.
Got it.
Okay.
She married a Navi. Yeah. No, but what do you mean she acted out? I don't get it.
In other words,
the woman was scheduled to die in any case.
No.
The Hakadosh Baruch Hu tells Yecheskel to marry this woman, and then Hakadosh Baruch Hu says she's going to die, and she dies.
He didn't know this when he married her.
No, of course not.
That's your question.
Okay.
She's going to die.
But why the poor woman?
Why didn't know this?
But why did he marry her?
Because God told him to.
We just go on, guys.
God said just marry this woman.
Let's see, what does it say?
Right. Okay.
So
actually, it does not go into it here. It's simply just showing you about the 2 days. Shenemar ben Adam hineni lokech minchot machmad einecha b'magefa.
Oh my God!
God says, I'm going to take.
He really loved her.
Yeah.
Machmad einecha.
Right. Correct.
What does that mean? Woo.
The love of your life.
The love of your eyes, like
right.
The light of your whatever. The light of your eyes.
Okay. And this was meant to be like a premonition about the loss of the Beis Hamikdash. The closeness of the Jewish people to the Almighty was about to be broken.
Right.
So is this like a warning that they should repent?
Yes. Yecheskel is warning. It's
how horrible it is to lose the thing you love the
most. So, but the point of bringing it here really has to do with the fact of dying in 2 days is a magefa. God says, I'm going to take away from you machmadidecha, the love, the desire of your eyes, b'magefa, in a plague, uksiv, and it says, if you I spoke to the people in the day, and I told them what the prophecy was. But Thomas ishti ba'erev, and my wife died at night. So, ba'erev shtei yamim, ba'erev. She dies at night, which means that's the day, and the night ba'erev is the night that follows. So that's 1 day plus 2 days is therefore, and God calls this a magefa.
Magefa, yeah.
Okay? So
you're sick one day, you die the next.
Right. So therefore, dying in 2 days is either called misa chatufa, Misa dechufa, or it's a magefa. Magefa is also not a good thing. Shnei Yomim Umeis.
You're sick for 2 days, you die on the third, presumably.
Right. Shnei Yomim Umeis. Zuhi Misa Dechuya. So Dechuya is pushed off. Okay, it's deferred. Okay. Gimel is Gara. Okay. 3 days is Gara's anger. Arba is Nazifa.
What's anger here?
This means God. It's a punishment. It's not a good death.
God is angry at you.
God is angry at you.
What's the 2 or 3? He's angry with you anyway.
But well, you see where
different levels.
It comes down to 5.
More
Okay.
time,
Different levels.
you have more time to say goodbye to people. Whatever.
Correct.
Different levels.
Okay.
Seems like the longer you go, it's better. You get more time to prepare.
That's
Okay,
exactly
yeah,
right.
that's
Correct.
what it
That's
is.
what we're
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
to. Right. So therefore, anything less than 5 days is considered to be rushed and haphazard and not prepared. And therefore, either God is rushing you or the Magifa is rushing you. So therefore, all of this is either pushed away right away, pushed out the door, so to speak, or it's gar, or it's anger, or 4 is nazif, or nazif is also a form of anger. And then chamisha zuhi mitat kol adam. 5, Chazal say, was the way normal people die. People had 5 days of weakness or of terrible pain and discomfort, where the body struggled to maintain stability against odds where the systems were out of whack completely and could not recover. After 5 days, the body collapses and the person dies. Okay? How do you know this? So you're going to say, well, that's just what they were used to. So of course that's what they were used to, but there's also a pasuk. What the pasuk is? The pasuk once again is not pshat. Amrav Chanin. My crow, what's the pasuk? It's the pasuk for the death of Moshe. Moshe is the perfect person, so he obviously dies a good death, and we know he dies a good death because it's the kiss of God. Hein karvu yomecha lamus. Okay, so Hashem says to him 4 words. Hein karvu yomecha lamus. So each of these words equals or can be linked to 1 day. Hein is chad. Hein is 1. Hein is like yes. Okay. So that's 1 day. Karvu, have come, that's in plural, that's 2 days. Yomecha, 2 more. Hein karvu yomecha lamus. God could have simply said, Hein lamut. Time to die. But Hein is 1. Karvu is plural is 2. Yomecha is days is plural 2. 2 plus 2 plus 1 equals 5 days. Ha chamisha. Okay? And the Gemara says, how do you know the Hein is 1? Hein chad shekain b'lashon Yavani korim la'achas hein. That in Greek the word for 1 is hein. Here we actually use in Aramaic the word hein means yes, like Cain.
This will be more complex. We have God speaking Greek in this game.
So well, Chazal thought that all languages were intertwined, and Greek especially
for sure
had a high level of acceptability.
But this is the word from the Torah. The hein.
Yeah.
All right, so therefore, 5 days looks to be the ideal. 5 days of complete body collapse and struggle. Anything shorter is considered
You're being rushed out.
You're being rushed out.
Probably longer.
Anything more is probably too long.
Suffering.
Suffering, correct. Okay, now, this is about dying in terms of the amount of days from the beginning of the fatal illness, the terminal illness, the last illness until the actual death. What about the age? Okay? Meis b'chamishim shana, zuhi misas kares. Okay? If you die at 50 years old, this is kares.
Is that exactly 50 or under 50?
Means 50 or under.
Under 50.
Under 50, okay? So if you didn't make it past 50, that's misas kares.
Well,
Kares is like...
so now we know what Torah is.
Be cut off.
Right. Now, by the way, let's just keep in mind that what we just ended up with is a bit of kares. A person dies in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days.
Yeah, but
That's also a divine shortening of one life, and boom, you're gone.
But we don't know how old you were.
Doesn't courage
That's a
mean
difference, right?
that you have no descendants, stuff like that?
So there are different types of kares. Okay, kares can mean cut off, that there are no children.
This kind of kares.
Kares also is really about years. Kares is a shortening of years.
Okay.
We don't know what kares is. People live 50, 60, 70 years. We don't know what that means.
Exactly.
A person is 52. 52 years. Zuhi mitato shel Shmuel Haramati. That's the age of Shmuel, the famous Shmuel from the book of Shmuel, how old he died. Okay?
So what does that mean?
It means if you die when you're 52, then you share a gene with the
You
Shmuel.
have something in common with Shmuel?
You have something in common with
But
Shmuel.
you could have a Russia that's 52?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Gemara actually will point out that really it should have said like for 50 is one marker, 60 is a different marker. So for 50 is 60, it looks like it should be between the first and second marker. See, it's not so good.
Okay.
And the Gemara does not simply say that because the Gemara didn't want to, Gemara was sensitive because Shmuel obviously was not a Rasha.
No.
So to put Shmuel between Kares and Misa B'dei Shemayim, that was not such a good thing to say.
By the way, Rambam is 50 something. wasn't
Correct. Okay, you're right. So there were exceptions to all these rules.
Made his famous speech. He said, "In Zakandi." Didn't he say Zakan? Maybe not. I'll look it up.
Okay, so
I guess in those
he got
days,
old.
maybe
52 years old.
Zaken.
Yeah.
In those days,
Maybe, because remember he
Yes.
said, "Have I taken anything from you, my sons?" etc., etc. The whole speech, right?
But there are another number of sources.
I never thought he was
Shmuel dies when he's 52.
52. Wow,
Yeah.
I got to go to Shmuel and look at
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So Shishim Zui Mita B'dei Shemayim. 60 is Kares is Misa B'dei Shemayim. Okay.
So
What does this mean?
So what
What does Rashi say, or somebody say this B'dei Shamayim? Now, all death is supposed to be B'dei Shamayim.
Yeah, but it means a shortening of death by God.
Shortening of life from
A
70.
shortening of life unnaturally.
60 years or less.
Correct. 60 years or less is Misa B'dei.
70 is
50
the
years or
norm.
less. 50 years or less is Kares. 60 years or less is Misa B'dei Shemayim. That's why I said the obvious question is, looks like Shmuel died with Misa B'dei
Yeah,
Shemayim.
no.
So Gemara is going to say, yeah, but we don't really want to say that about Shmuel.
For sure.
Okay.
So it doesn't talk, does it
Now-
ever get to 70? We'll
Yeah,
see
we got to
later,
keep
yeah.
going. Yes. Okay. How do you know this? Amar Zutra, my crow, once again, everything's got to be a pasuk.
Sure.
Pasukim, as we see, are not meant to be literally. They receive Tavo Bakelach Elai Kever. Come to, I forgot what Kelach is. Kelach is, what's Kelach? I forgot.
Kelach, he has in quotes here from Eov, he says, the Gematria, are we going to...
The Gematria is 60.
Mature age.
Mature, okay. Come with maturity to me, to the grave.
Mature age.
So, Bekelach is Begematria Shitim. So the word Bekelach is how old is it? 58, and Bekelach is 60. Okay, so therefore, in Eov, when it talks about coming and dying, so it uses this term, and Eov obviously was punished by God, so therefore dying at 60 is considered punishment Misa B'dei Shemayim. Okay, Shivim. Okay, Shivim is Seva. Okay, here comes the good stuff. When you get to 70, this is ripe old age. Okay, Shmonim is Gvuros. Shmonim is called strength.
Right.
It's kind of like the golden age, the golden years. Okay. Famous pasuk in Tehillim. The years of our life are 70, and if by strength 80 years old, so if you have additional strength, you make it to 80. Okay, so therefore this was considered the life of man. Anything 60 and under was considered to be negative. And Amar Rabba says this at this point. Anything less than 60 is actually kares. So Rabba makes the kares go up to 59.
Right.
And the reason we only said 50 in the previous Gemara was we don't want to make Shmuel look like he had kares. Okay. Now, Rav Yosef, people often wonder about if there's a Jewish source for making birthday parties.
Okay.
Yes? Right? Who makes a birthday party in the Tanakh? Paro. That's what
he
it says.
does?
Yeah, Vayehi b'yom holedes Paro. It's when he takes out the Sarofim and Saramashkim.
Oh, I don't remember that. Okay.
That's when he
That's when he pardons and he calls them out.
Oh,
he hangs one and he pardons the other.
That's like always the king's birth, like the king's birthday.
Yom Holedis is Paro. That's the term. That's where the term comes from. Yom Holedis. So people say, you have to be wicked like Paro to make a Yom Holedis. But here's a case where birthday does come up. It's obviously not a birthday every year. This is, by the way, a concept of doing a birthday. We're supposed to do things in this world. The more you live, the more opportunity you have to do things. Celebrating an anniversary of when you came into this world to do mitzvahs and masim tovim and share the wisdom of the Almighty, it's very positive.
Sure.
So it's not such a negative thing. But Rav Yosef, Bar Shitin, when he became 60 years old, Avad le Yom Tov Rabban, he made a holiday, a birthday party for the rabbis. Why? Amar Nafkali mi kares. I passed the time of kares. Okay. Now, he could still die basically Shema, but kares was considered serious. All right. So now Abaye said to him, "No, wait, don't be so quick. We saw there were different types of karet. We had karet that was years, which is 60 when you reach 60 years old. But then we also had these kareses of dying in numbers of days. We began this with the Gemara by saying 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. All this is considered divine negativity. So you can be celebrating you made 60 years old that you're not going to get kares cut by God, but God can cut you off tomorrow. You'll die 60 years in 1 day. So what are you celebrating about? What's the big celebration? You left the kares of shanim, of years. Did you go out from the kares of days? Did you escape this? Now, there does reach an age where you do escape this. A person reaches 70 and 80, these years of gvurot and seva, people's bodies wear out.
Yeah.
No one lives forever, right?
Sure.
So my uncle used to say, when the famous line in the Western movies, no one gets out of here alive.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
no one gets out of here alive. Everybody passes away.
Absolutely.
And as people get older, they become more frail, and they can die very, very quickly. So the answer is yes. That's when you get 80. It's when you get to or 70. But from 60 to die in 1 day, or 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, that was considered still a klala, or still divine punishment. So how could you be celebrating? So he says, you're right. I can't celebrate completely. You can never celebrate complete victory over death. But at least one piece I did. Maybe I die, and maybe God will punish me die in a day or two. But I passed the years of itself. Okay. So Amalei said that's what he responded. Take at least half in your hand. Okay.
What does that mean?
It means I passed the age of kares, of years. It's true I can still die rapidly, suddenly, which is a punishment, which is seen as a punishment. So I can't say that I've defeated kares completely, but I've defeated the kares that is defined by the amount of years that I live. Okay? Rav Huna Noach Nafshe Pitom. Okay, here's a true story. Rav Huna died very suddenly.
The Pitom guy is like Chatufa. I mean, that's the guy, right? That we just said it before.
Was it Rav Huna?
No. At the very beginning of our Rabban.
Yeah.
On Rabban, right?
Correct. Pitom. Correct.
Yeah.
It's called Mita Chatufa.
Considered the worst.
So he died right away. So people said, "Oh, Gewalt." We thought this guy was a big tzaddik and Talmud Chacham and everything else, but we just learned, right? Mein Pitom is Mitzah Chatufa. So that's exactly what Abaye was afraid of when he was talking to Rabbi Yosef. So Havakodaine Rabbanan. So the rabbis were judging it, so to speak. In other words, they were figuring out what this means. Now, what's the omen here? What does this mean? Does this really mean to say to us that Rav Huna was not so righteous, that there was duplicity, that there was divine punishment, and this was all a fakery? Well, they were trying to understand. Once again, it doesn't mean they're having a meeting. It's like we just said about the Chmielnicki massacres. That when you're very religious and see everything as the Yad Hashem, you grapple with the issues of death that are illogical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you can also come to the conclusion and say, I don't know. Why can't we say, I don't know? Instead, no, this is the reason. Why can't it looks like that, but I'm not sure. What's wrong with that?
A person themselves can say, this I believe is the reason for me. You can't say, I can't say to you, you deserve for this reason, but you yourself,
but you don't know for sure that's the reason.
You don't.
But
you look and you say, I spoke to him definitely, or whatever I did, and then you say that's it. But I can't say, you know why? Because he did this.
No, but that's what they're saying here. They're saying this is the reason. I'm saying, why not say, I'm not sure.
They didn't have a reason.
Okay, I don't know the answer.
You're right, and they're trying to say, is there something here? Is there something here? Could it be?
It could be this. So say, okay, it could be that. So say it could be that. But don't say that's what it is.
While they're going back and forth, and no doubt one of the Rabbanim was saying exactly as you said, jumping up and down, how could you say this? And they're continuing back and forth. Tana lahu zuga de mehadev. A couple of Talmidei Chachamim who came from the town of Mehadev, I don't think I pronounced that correctly, said it's not even on the table. It's not even an issue to talk about. Lo shanu ela shlo higia legvurot. When you talk about a person dying precipitously, that means they're a young person. Rav Huna died at the age of Gvurot. He was 80 years old. When a person is 80 years old and dies precipitously, that's God giving him the kiss of death, the ultimate reward, not to suffer, to live a life fully, and then not to have to suffer at the end. Okay? And that itself, and that's a bracha. So it's a bracha. It's not a bracha to die young and to die quickly young, because you can't put your house in order. But to die old and to die immediately after you've lived a full life, that is considered mitat neshika, the highest level of I won't say the highest level of death, but the easiest and best level of death, the most painless level. Okay.
Good.
Okay. So he called this couple, this two chachamim from this town of Meidahav, Mehadyav. We were able to quiet everybody down. Amar Rava. Okay, now. So it looks like we're all trying to give answers, but the truth is, as we know, not everything is that clear.
Right.
And life is a box of chocolates. You don't know what it is until you open it. And we don't. And then you don't. And we don't all get the same box.
Exactly.
Right. And at the end of the day, we're not robots, and we don't all get the same kind of go roll in life, and therefore the next more is important. Amarava chaye bane umezone, life, children, and livelihood. Lo b'schus atalia milsa. Do not only rely upon the schus of that you have, which is black and white. You accumulated so many mitzvah points, and you get so many rewards.
Mitzvah meter.
Right. The mitzvah meter is not count. Ela b'mazla talia melsa. It's related to mazel. Even though we say there's no mazel li Yisrael, we're under the rule of Hashem. We're not under the rule of the constellations. Mazel, by the way, means constellations here. And how do you know that there's a certain randomness? So it gives you two examples. Example of two scholars. Both were great scholars, Rabbi and Rav Chisda. The Harabba of Rav Chisda, Tarvaihu Rabbanan Tzadikei Have. Both were great tzaddikim. They were equals. How do you know that they were great tzaddikim? Mar Masli v'Ati Mitra, Umar Masli v'Ati Mitra. Each one could pray and was a tearjerker for the Almighty to send rain down. When there was a drought and they came together, they put the biggest tzaddik to daven, and the sign of the fact that he was successful as a tzaddik and he was true and sincere and genuine and spiritual was the fact that the rain came. They both could do these miracle works. And yet, Rav Chisda Chaya Tishin V'Tartin Shani. Rav Chisda lived for 92 years. Rabba Chaya Arbain. Rabba died 40 years. Okay, it's less than half the length. Bei Rav Chisda Shitin Hilula. The house of Rav Chisda made 60 Hilulas, or 60 weddings, 60 simchas. Bei Rabba Shitin Tichla. The house of Rabba made 60 tichla is like shrouds and burials. Okay. Bei Rav Chisda Smida lekalbe v'lo mizbaye. Smida was the finest flour. In the house of Rav Chisda, they gave the finest flour to the klavim, to the dogs, and they had enough. There was not left over. In other words, there was so much excess and so much luxury and food. And Bei Rabba Nahama desari leinshi v'lo mishtakach. They gave oat. They had to give oat bread to the men. Oat meal was considered for animals. So they're eating the horse food, and there wasn't even enough. Okay.
So wait a minute. These are two brothers?
No. The two
famous rabbis.
Just two rabbis.
Two rabbis. But in other words, the point of it being that there's something more than simply black and white that you can say, I did this and I get this. It's not so clear. And this becomes the counterbalance to everything that we talked about, that Hashem does this, and Hashem does that, and Hashem does this, and you do this, and Hashem rewards you, and so forth. Okay?
They're agreeing with you. Don't think it's all black and white.
Correct. Okay. We'll just do one more piece. And then
Rabba. It's got that same Rabba.
No, that was Rabba. Rabba. Hani tlasmili boy kamishmaya. I asked for three things, said Rabba from heaven. Tarta yahavali, chadali yahavali. They gave me two blessings. One they didn't give me. Now you see the blessings he got are pretty good. I asked for Chachma Sad Rav Huna. I asked for the Chachma of Rav Huna. This is the same Rav Huna who died early at the age of 80, precipitously, right? So I asked for his wisdom and the Otre to Rav Chisda. And I asked for the riches of Rav Chisda. This is the Rav Chisda we just mentioned, who gave the fine wheat flour bread to the dogs. right? And they gave it to me. They gave me the wisdom of Rav Huna and the riches of Rav Chisda. And v'sanusei de Rabba bar Rav Huna, I asked for the humility of Rabba bar Rav Huna, v'lo yahavale.
No.
And they did not give it to me, okay? So in other words, now you're saying, well, that sounds like somewhat of a Baal Gaiva to say that.
Exactly.
But but the point of it being, you don't get everything in life, and you ask for, but you have to ask for it nonetheless. Okay, we're going to stop here. The next piece of Gemara is actually going to be stories about people who met the Malcham Avos. And tried to say to the Malcham Avos, today's not my day.
Today's not the day.
Today's not the day.